Hey everyone, I'm Shannon,
I'm Alexis.
and we are welcoming you back to another episode of Get Stiff.
Get Stiff is a podcast where we have conversations around grief, loss, and everything in between over cocktails. Each episode coincides with a themed cocktail, and we share the recipe with our listeners.
Today's cocktail is a twist on an espresso martini with a little chocolate syrup in the bottom. Add it if you want, or don't, but I'm calling it the Doux You Boo. Will we love it? Will we hate it? Let's find out together. So if you're ready, let's raise a glass. Let's take a sip. And let's fucking get into it, because wow.
That was amazing.
That was amazing. I love it.
That was really good. That was really good.
That glass.
Delightful. And I got vegan babies. They have babies made with almond milk.
Oh,
Really?
I didn't know that.
So I didn't have to take this lactate, is what you're telling me. I could have been living my best life.
So I didn't have to suffer the consequences of this freaking fine. Well, we know for next time, Shannon.
That's.
Well, let me tell you guys about our amazing guest that we have today. Dr. Ally is a mental health relationship expert, television personality, and founder of the Doux Consulting Group, helping clients, couples, and corporations authentically align with themselves and their brands by using a blend of neuroscience and creativity is her true passion. By using a balance of behavioral science and common sense humanity, Dr. Ally transforms the minds of viewers and individual clients. In her eyes, mental health is much more than the therapist's couch. It weaves itself throughout every moment of everyday life, even the creative ones. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Ally. We're so excited.
Yes.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I am just so thrilled to have you here. Thank you. I know Alexis is too. And I'm very happy. So one of your many titles, many well-deserved titles, is a psychofuturist. Can you break down a little bit of what that means for those who aren't familiar? And by those who aren't familiar, I mean me, because when I tell you I had never heard that before.
So psychofuturism is a term that I coined. Basically, I have been a little bit disenfranchised with the industry of psychology, which a lot of psychologists and therapists of color have been. And so I'm trying to think, what's next? What's coming up? What directions are we moving in? And we have things like AI, which are really pushing the boundaries of mental health. What is mental health going to look like in 10 years? Where is AI going to be in 10 years? Looking at diversity. So we have like ethnic and cultural diversity, we have gender diversity, we have gender identity diversity among clinicians and among patients alike. We have more diverse patients even coming in to see us. And so how does the industry expand to fit these folks in it? That's a little bit of what I'm trying to do research in that space and be able to then push the conversation about it through media and in different forums that I go on.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Look,
That's really
I love
badass.
that I didn't, right? Listen, like I was saying, I know Ally in real life. And when I tell you, that doesn't shock me, because the walking fierceness that is this bad bitchery in action. Like, when I tell you, when I tell you, this does not surprise me. And just over the years, just the nuggets of wisdom that I've been able to give, that I've been able to get from you, and that I've been able to like regurgitate to other people. This does not shock me. It does not surprise me. And it's a perfect segue into my next question. So one of my favorite pieces that you've written, it's a very short read, and it's the Psychofuturist Guide to Effective Communication. And I love it because it's just a very quick, succinct, easy way to give some nuggets of help to folks who are really trying to better their interactions with other people. And I think it's incredibly applicable to navigating interactions with people after experiencing a loss. I know a lot of times when folks have experienced a deep personal loss, they have to navigate the condolences that almost feel empty, or kind of feeling like they have to really uh,
Mm.
console the people who are supposed to be consoling them. And how do you think people who have experienced a recent loss can use those same tactics to navigate conversations with their community after that death has occurred?
Let me tell you, it's definitely not easy because the average person has no idea what to do with emotions, let alone with an emotion as heavy as grief and loss. And so you'll get a lot of people who are well meaning, but are absolutely incapable of really meeting you where you are, even if they've had a loss in the past, right? That's something that a lot of people will be like, well, my friend, or my sibling, they've lost somebody, so they'll understand this loss that I'm going through. Not necessarily. So the first thing, and I don't know exactly what I wrote in that article because I'm a goldfish and my memory is absolute crap. But what but I know I train people a lot in how to have difficult conversations. And one of the things that I think is so important is kind of having a plan. So, as someone who's experienced a loss recently, and you get people constantly coming to you, like you said, with those empty questions, those empty statements, you're like, why are you even talking to me? Maybe I just want to be alone for 10 seconds. Have a statement in your head that you know you can just go to and say. Have it rehearsed, have it practiced, have it be whatever tone you want. Maybe you have three. Maybe you have a really kind statement, then you have kind of a neutral statement, then you have a really sassy one, like these are the boundaries, right? So I feel like planning ahead is really important, especially when you're exhausted, because grief is exhausting. And so I think that's how I would deal with it. And I lost my dad in 2020, and then I lost an uncle later in 2020. Then I lost an uncle in 2020 in the beginning, my dad, then I lost my grandma, then I lost my aunt. It just in January. And so it's been hard because people will ask that simple thing like, how are you doing? And you're thinking, motherfucking not okay. What the fuck would make you think I'd be okay?
Mm-hmm.
Right? But you can't say that. You have to be like, well, maybe you can. That's the sassy response. But that's the sassy answer. But in reality, sometimes if I know this person isn't somebody that I really know very well, it might be like a hanging in there. I'm all right. And then you can have your moderate answer with somebody that you're a little bit more close to. You can say something like, I'm feeling the emotions that I've been feeling, but I've also been experiencing this positive thing. So it just depends on the relationship that you have with the person, how much time you have, and how sassy you want to be.
I love that so much. The first thing that comes to mind for me, Shannon, when she says that is you know what I'm going to say. What was the reason?
What was the reason? Oh,
yeah.
God. Okay, so Allie, I'll give you a little. I'll keep it brief because I know the people who are listening have heard this story before. But when Matt passed away, I went back to church. So I went back to my home church, and you grew up SDA, so you know how it can be sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the elder ladies gave me a hug and said, well, everything happens for a reason. And she didn't expect me to Cardi be here. And I said, so what was the reason? Tell me, what was the reason? And I just sat there and looked at her, and then she just started kind of stumbling over her words. And then eventually I just kind of walked away. But there was very little, especially in those first weeks, there was very little grace because I just did not have the bandwidth for it. I already don't really have the bandwidth to be, to kind of beat around the bush in difficult conversations. But that time in particular, I really didn't have it. And I didn't have it. So she got it.
That was your sassy, definitely your
definitely
sassy.
I definitely leaned into the sassy.
Dr. Allie, a lot of your work focuses on helping people become better versions of themselves. Can you talk to us a little bit about the Doux You deck and how it helps and what the inspiration was behind creating this?
Oh my God. That's like my favorite thing to talk about. The Doux You deck is a 50, I should pull them out somewhere. It's a 52 deck, a 52 piece card deck. And it is it's basically here to help you be more connected to who you are, to do you better than you've ever done you before. And the reason that I made it, I have images. I got like all these beautiful artistic pieces on it. It's like line drawings. It's super girly. Everything's pink and cute. And I'm obsessed with it. And so it's broken down into 3 different sections. We have do cards, which are all about things that you're going to do in the world that'll help you connect to yourself more and connect to your community more, figure out who you are. I have journal cards, which are prompts, the things that you're going to journal on that are going to help you do that. And then there are meditation cards, which are things you're going to sit with and you're going to meditate on and you're going to focus on so you can, again, connect with who you are. And the way it started was I did not have a good time in the pandemic. There are some people that had a blast. I was not one of them. And I was not okay. And because my dad actually died in the very beginning, like in June. So pretty early on in the pandemic. And I went absolutely insane. And so one night I just couldn't sleep because I was having like these waking nightmares and I was absolutely a mess. And so I just got up and I said, let me write down all of the therapeutic interventions that I've done that I think were like worth anything. Things that I think were actually helpful for patients, for clients, back when I was doing like therapy, now that I'm doing coaching, what are just as many things as I could write. And I wrote up like maybe 60 different interventions. And I was going to write a book about it, like make it like a workbook or worksheet or something. And it was called the Courage. Like I was all into courage at the time. So originally it was called like the Courage deck, the Courage book. And so my lit agent at the time was like, I don't know how workbooks are selling. So she was like, I pass. And I was like, I still want to sell these. So I was like, let me make it into a card deck. So it was originally called From the Courage Workbook to the Courage Cards. And then it became the Do You deck. And so there's a lot of courageousness kind of built into it. But ultimately, it's like every intervention that I've used that I felt like was really helpful. So it's a little coach in a box.
I need that. I'm like going to order it as soon as I'm like, this sounds like something I need in my life right now. Like 1,000%.
I should have had one right next to me.
It is the Do You deck, and it's DOUX. So that makes my little Creole heart sing.
Do you?
The Do You deck.
Yes.
But it reminds me of Allie, one of the, so there's a deck that's not similar, but it's like a conversation deck that's to start conversations around end of life planning, and it's called the Death deck. And so one of our colleagues, it was started by a hospice nurse and a social worker, and they have kind of created this like card deck of just conversations and questions. Some are multiple choice, things like, if you were to die suddenly, who do you want to get rid of all of your, all of your journals, or who do you want to get rid of all of your questionable paraphernalia, or what one thing of your partners would you be so happy to never see again? Or it just was really interesting, thought-provoking questions. And so I love that there is a version for empowerment and growth, and to kind of, and 52 is perfect, aside from it being just like the perfect, way to get someone through a year.
Right.
Just even once, because sometimes once a week is all you got. Because sometimes that's all you got to give. And I love that it's low commitment, and it's just very, a very easy way to kind of nudge someone in the right direction of self-care, self-discovery, and just growth.
Thank you. You say it better than I do. Girl, I need to take you on the road.
She can join you.
And then I'm over here answering questions. Who do I want to get rid of my things? Don't get rid of anything. Create a museum to me. Create a fucking art piece. I want all my dildos hanging on a wall somewhere.
I feel like if you were to enlist someone like of your siblings, like it would probably be Shelby is the one that like.
Shelby has a sensitive constitution. She would definitely do it because Kendall would make fun of everything. And she would be the one to make the museum, though. Shelby would be like, let's throw it away. And no, I only journal with the intention of it being a book one day after I die. So I need everyone to understand that you better publish that shit.
Yep. That's how I think of things now too. When I journal, I'm like, someone's going to read this someday. I got to make it theatrical. I got to make it worthwhile, you know?
So dramatic. Every time I get a feeling, I am like, as I sit here on the edge of the lanai, my eyes fill and weld with tears as they
In the depths of sorrow and my bleak. Yeah.
my
It's
bleak
exactly how I write too.
cracks open as it's rent from my body. Like, this is your gift. Me and you're just
Yep. Someone's going to read it someday. If I want to be in a museum or if I want like my own, setup, it has to be worthwhile.
period, point blank. I am like Edwina Allycin Poe over here. I am like, no, I'm going all the way in, all the drama. And then don't let me journal tonight when I'm a little drunk. It's supposed to be real crazy.
That's going to be even better though. It's the best time to journal.
Best time.
Okay, Hemingwana.
Wanda.
Oh
my God.
It was like write drunk, edit sober, or something like that.
Oh.
I love those words.
Can I be Poesha? Because that would be like my dream.
I deeply love Poesha.
Like, I have to.
I love
it. That's my aspiration now. Now I'm going to write in that tone. People are going to be like, what is going on? But anyways, getting back to your amazing work and some of your really cool creations, I wanted to talk about, because this was something I kind of divulged into and started looking into a little bit, your holistic equilibrium wheel. So I wanted to see if you could tell us a little bit about that, because I was reading on it a little bit, but I want you to like give us more details and,
I also have a support group. I do too many things, but I love every last one of them. And in the support group, I was noticing it's all about burnout. And it's for mostly women of color. I have a lot of African-American women in there. And I just noticed that balance is something we just don't get the opportunity to have all the time. And what are some ways, I was thinking, like, what are some ways that we can throw ourselves back into balance? We can figure out what areas are not in balance, because as we're moving, we're not thinking about anything that we're doing because we're just trying to survive. So I was like, okay, let's get ladies to sit down and focus on themselves, focus on the areas of their life. So they get to go around the little wheel, and it's like focusing on, like, I think it's like 8 or 9 different areas of their life, from like finances to family to social to spiritual, because, sometimes we only talk about like the big ones: mental, spiritual health, psychological health, and like physical health. There are so many more types of health, like I said, like financial and things like that. So I wanted people to be able to do a little assessment into what areas are out of balance, and then how can we rate those areas. And it's visual, because I like the visuals. Obviously, I like cards, I like decor. So you get to like color, like you can like pull out your little crayons and stuff. And then you get to really break it down and dive into each section of your life and figure out how you go about finding balance. How do you go about setting goals in that particular area so that you can actually systematically create the balance that you don't have?
I also need to be getting that. I'm like, add that to my list.
I love y'all. Y'all are forcing me to remember all the things that I have. I'm like, oh shit, I hope I cover it well.
You're out here though. Like, you've done a lot.
Oh yeah. And I think, you know what? But I think that speaks, like, explicitly speaks to what you were saying about how Black women don't really have an off button. We don't know when to rest. And so I think it's been collectively very easy for us to be, when we do something, it's like, oh yeah, we do that, but I'm on to what's next. I'm on to what's next. And so we don't really sit to look back and think of like all we got done. And I will say, Alexis, you're very good at reminding even me of that, because I'm like, we got to do this, this, and this. And she's like, Shannon, we did this, we did this, we did this. We can take a break. It's okay.
Yes.
Okay. It's fine.
That is so real. I had a moment where I don't even think I realized that I did that. I do it so much because I feel like I've literally done nothing, right? I look back at my life and I'm like, I've done nothing with my life. I'm a failure. Sometimes, every once in a while, I can be honest with myself. But I was actually in couples therapy with my husband, because couples therapy is a thing that I recommend most couples should do. And I was like crying my eyes out, literally, because I had like given him some advice. Okay, mind you, everyone, my husband is an engineer that is a tech founder and a coder. I did not pass math.
Same.
I had so many statistics courses, and I was like, a girl does not know how she's going to pass these classes. And I was so upset that I was giving him business advice on these tech businesses. And in areas that I truly probably shouldn't have. I mean, I know certain things, but I don't know all of them. And he was kind of like, no, thanks. I'm fine. And I was bawling my eyes out. I was bawling my eyes out. The therapist is kind of looking at us, and I was looking at him, and I was like, but Aaron, who am I to you if if I'm not doing something for you? If I'm not giving something to your life? And then I fucking heard it and was like, oh my God. Like, I see myself as this person who has no value if I'm not doing something for someone, if I'm not constantly of service. And I was like, oh, this has to stop.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you deserve love, whether you're doing something to help someone or not.
That.
And I was like, damn, Allycin, like, how have you been living? So yeah, so then I took a step back and I learned I'm trying to slow down more, sit on my laurels more, be honest with myself about like the areas in my life that do need help and work. And it's not always the areas that I think.
You hear that, Shannon? Slowing down.
Listen. I feel like you might as well just cuss me out. Like, you might as well just cuss me out. That's fine.
I support it. I support it.
Side note, yes, her husband is all of those things. He's also a badass photographer.
He really is.
When
He's so
I
talented.
tell you
So
the art that this man has like captured, just and he's like a fine art photography, right? Would that be fair to say, Allie?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And just some of these, I'm going to send you, like, my favorite series was the Milk series. That is my absolute favorite series. And it's like, he'll take these pictures of women, and then he'll like throw like milk on them, but it'll be like mid throw. And like, it's stunning. I'm going to send it to you, Alexis. It's absolutely stunning.
Yeah. I want to see.
He's a genius. Like, he honestly surprises me. Like, when I was having my tech problems, he was like on the staircase, like, is it okay? Do you need me to redo this? I was like, I think he figured it out. But like, yeah, he is, I'm in awe of him every day. And through the process of slowing down, I was also able to see my partner differently. I was able to see my family differently, the support that I was getting. Cause when you're moving fast sometimes and you're so stressed out, you get dramatic, you get black and white. You're existing in this trauma space and you're like, nobody's here to help me. No, plenty of people are here to help you. If you would shut the fuck up, slow down for 10 seconds and pay attention to how many amazing people are in your life.
Ooh,
yes, Shannon.
Read me, why don't you? Read me, why don't you?
We've all got to do it sometimes. We all need to get read.
Well, let me ask you this. Is your, and I'm sure, I'm not even going to ask if you read it, because I know you probably have. You've read The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman.
I don't know.
The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman?
I'm sure yeah.
Like, I'm sure you have. And as someone whose love language, like my love language is acts of service. And so it's very difficult because I tie how I show my affection to people, and not just in romantic relationships, but in friendships, in familial relationships, in business partnerships. I show my appreciation, love, and care for that person by doing things for them. But in turn, it's interesting because it's always been difficult to accept help. So in listening to you say that, how can I be of service to you, or how can I be worthy of love if I'm not doing things for you? What is your love language? And is it the same as how you like to receive love, or how do you like to receive love?
My love language is words of affirmation. That is like my number one. And I will say, I actually think acts of service are kind of low for me of what I want. And I think a part of it is what you were saying earlier, is that that's what I give. And a lot of times we give what we want, but I kind of, when people are helping me, sometimes I get a little embarrassed. Like, it's a weird feeling. I feel like, so it's not like I feel like I'm not worth it, but I'm kind of like, oh, I should have done that. Oh, I should have thought of that. If I had already done it, then no one would have to be helping me. So I'm like, oh, I should have just, so I even I have an assistant, and sometimes I'll be in meetings with her and she's like, what do you want me to do? I'm like, I don't know, girl. Like, I feel like I should be doing it. She's like, so sometimes she's just like, okay, I'm going to take this one, and that one's that thing you said you're going to do. I'm also going to do that. And then, so I'm like, okay, I'm blessed to have you. But yeah, so I am a words of affirmation person. I want to hear the I love yous. I want to hear that this is why you're so great. And so it is special to be married to an engineer who's also a Virgo who doesn't necessarily use all the words. He uses a lot of words, but not necessarily all of them. But yeah, so I would say that's me. What about you, Alexis? Alex.
Yeah.
Why can't I say words? Alexis, Jesus fucking
was-
Christ.
I'm
Y'all gotta stop making me drunk.
That's
Listen,
close.
Fuck.
I'm the same. I'm words of affirmation, and acts of service is really, I think that and receiving gifts are like my lowest when I took the thing, but words of affirmation and quality time were like my top two. But words of affirmation was the number one.
I appreciate quality time. Physical touch is good too. But yeah, I think I have a similar structure.
Yeah. Shannon's the opposite of us.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so the opposite. When I tell you
And-
physical touch is all the way at the bottom of my
I knew
list,
it.
it's all the way at the bottom of my list. But what's interesting is my partner, his love language is physical touch. And so I'm like, well, shit. But
like,
it really is like, yeah, it really is like learning a new language. And physical touch doesn't necessarily, as we know, doesn't necessarily mean sex and intimacy.
No. Yeah.
Well, and intimacy and sex aren't really interchangeable, but things like, just making sure little stuff like, okay, if we're in the car, I'm going to hold your hand, or like, if we are if we're watching TV, I may like put my hand on your leg or something like that. Or just even if you are working on like he works a ton and he works in education and he works a lot. So if I see he's stressing out or exhaling heavily, I might come behind him and just kind of rub the back of his neck a little bit, just little things like that. When we first, like in the first year or two that we were seeing each other, I had to really be intentional to do. Now it's like a habit. But with mine being acts of service, little things like trying to make my life easier. And I'm not necessarily a gifts person, but I like my life to be made easier. So things like most recently, I was having really terrible internet service. Like it was really bad. Our recordings were choppy. It was frustrating. And I just did not have the bandwidth or the time to call around to look at different internet providers, to set something up, all of that. He did all of that work for me and sent me a screenshot and was like, this provider, this plan, this and this and this will do what you want. Here's a link to set it up online. Like I pre-filled in most of your information, but this is the information I don't have. And it was the next day it was done. Or 2 days later, I got everything in the mail. It was done. And so things like that, it's like, it doesn't necessarily, I think people get caught up in, you have to spend money to make someone else's life easier. And while he does do that, but like that's not always necessarily the need. Anyway, we're getting off topic. But
I was about to take us further off topic because there's new love languages. There's new love languages.
Are there?
So I was trying to look them up.
There's
I don't
new
know
ones?
if these are them. There's new ones because humans, we're evolving. Psychofuturism, baby. We are evolving. Shared experiences, which I'm like, how different is that from quality time? But I guess it's different because with quality time, it's just you could necessarily spend it anywhere. But like, this makes me think about your girlfriends who, when you go on a girlfriend's trip, like they gotta like bungee jump and like all you bitches gotta do it.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, I'm not doing it alone.
Yeah.
It's a new experience, but we've all got to share it. So that's one. And then this other one, they're saying emotional security, which I kind of will say, I think that's just a basic necessity for any relationship. You've got to have emotional security. Yeah. But I'll say the shared experiences, that kind of sounds like it might be a separate and new one, whatever.
I like that. Well, because also, I mean, that doesn't necessarily, because quality time for me can be, you're reading your book, I'm reading my book, and we're in the same room, like being together. But like just even this past weekend, we spent the weekend in Newport. He took me out we had like a staycation, a spa weekend in Newport, and girl. And but it was so cute. There was kind of a lull. We got back from the spa and the All-Star game was on. And I kind of was like, the thing is, I'm more of a football girly than a basketball girly. And I know that's controversial because TBIs are a thing. But but I was in the room kind of like watching, but he's watching the All-Star game and I'm laying on him, but I have my AirPods in and I'm watching The Sopranos on my iPad. And that is kind of like, it still felt very much like together time. We were still cuddled up on the couch doing two very separate things. But also, then there were shared experiences where it's like, no, I don't just want you to send me to go do things. Like, I really wanted to see Mean Girls, the musical, right? Really wanted to see it. I love Mean Girls. Oh, I saw the movie. I didn't see the musical, but the movie, because it's a musical.
Mm-hmm.
So and I said, well, you don't have to go with me. I'll enjoy it on my own time. Like, I know you're not really into musicals, but he still went with me, and like we watched it together. And the thing is, was that his first choice? Absolutely not. I know it wasn't. But even when the songs came on, he was kind of like just at least pretending to have a good time, which was just great.
Yeah.
And that was just, things like that I think could fall under shared experiences, where it's like, no, do this thing with me, do this thing that makes me happy with me, and maybe you'll also enjoy it. I think that's definitely a big one. That might be one of mine. Who knows?
Yeah, I'll keep you posted on the direction that the new love language goes. I'll keep you posted.
Yeah.
So I do want to kind of shift a little bit and talk more about, I want to get into, kind of we'll get in our spiritual bag for a second. And I know, oh, gasp. And I'm really excited to talk to you about this because, Allie, we did both grow up Seventh-day Adventist, and Alexis is Jewish. I always tell people that Adventism is like Judaism with sprinkles.
It's Judaism with a little bit of cult on top.
Right? Those are the sprinkles. Those are the sprinkles. What do you mean? But, that's what I explained it, how I explain it to people. But in terms of how, growing up in that environment and now shifting to, I know you're shifting more into a holistic space. Alexis as well. Alexis, you've always, been spiritual and spooky. That's been your thing. And as I've gotten older, I've kind of looked at religion with more of a critical eye. And while there are still some things about the upbringing and the traditions that I really appreciate, definitely not as interwoven as I used to be. And so that being said, how has your work affected your spirituality? And if we can cut this out, if you don't want to talk about this on air. But
I'll talk about it. And I'm just, first of all, I talk about my spirituality often. I have no problem talking about it.
One of my, I guess that's a part A and B is A, how has your work affected your spirituality? And B, after losing your father, how has that experience affected how you've looked at spirituality? I know after losing my fiance, my view has completely shifted.
Loss changes a lot. So my career, how has it pivoted my spirituality? Well, I actually became Buddhist because of psychology. So I have been Buddhist for 15 years. Mm-hmm. I've been Buddhist for 15 years. And partly one of our shared friends helped me get into Buddhism. Mr. Mark was one of the things. Little Mark got me into Buddhism early, but I kind of went in a different direction with my Buddhism. But I was trained in dialectical behavioral therapy. It's called DBT. And it was created by a researcher named Dr. Marsha Lanahan. And I was watching my patients get better, like really get better. And it's for patients who are dealing with a diagnosis called borderline personality disorder. Mm-hmm. And so folks who have this disorder are, there's like emotional dysregulation, and just emotions can come on hard and fast, and they are hard to get rid of for some folks. And there can be a lot of inconsistencies in their personal lives and things like this. And DBT is one of the most effective treatments. So when I learned that Marsha got it from Buddhism, I was like, So I went to the TAP, I started reading sutras and I had a meditation class I was going to, or a Sangha, like a family kind of community group I was going to. But, since the pandemic, I really haven't been doing anything, but my Buddhism really, I think it saved me. From my perspective, the difference between a classic monotheistic religion, or specifically like Adventist Christianity, I can speak to Seventh-day Adventist Christianity and Christianity in general, and Buddhism, is I say Christianity is an external religion, whereas Buddhism is an internal religion. And I use that as an example. Is I was on an airplane, and I hate flying. Hate it. Hate travel. I love traveling, but I hate flying. So there's all this turbulence, and I had just become Buddhist, and the turbulence just petrified me. So I immediately start praying to God. I was like, "Dear Heavenly Father." Then I was like, I don't believe in that anymore. I can't pray to God. Because before I was like imagining God like holding the plane up through the air, like flying it through the air, And then I realized that's not what I believe anymore. That's not the case. That's not my reality. And I realized that I had a choice and an opportunity to feel how I wanted to feel. It was on me. The choice was mine to pivot my mind to, am I going to have fun with the turbulence? Am I going to enjoy this? Am I going to distract from it? What am I going to do? It's not about me putting my worries and anxieties on something else, something outside of me. So that was kind of a big watershed moment for me. And 15 years later, I'm still here. And now I'm actually spooky as fuck because after my dad died, I got wildly spooky. I was always spooky. I was always the kid that the ancestors would come to. They in my dreams or in my bedroom would just pop up. And Adventism does not believe in that. So Seventh-day Adventists believe that your family members, when they die, are dead and they know nothing. They are in the ground, in the urn. They are asleep. They are not awake until the second coming of Jesus, when they all rise out of the ground. They do not go to heaven. And so if you see an ancestor, you're seeing a demon. It's a spirit. It's a principality. It's not a good thing. And after my dad died, that was also around the time of Black Lives Matter. It was around the time, a little bit after Beyonce was doing her thing. And I dove deeper because I had an understanding of African traditional religion, but I dove into it a little bit more and trying to figure out what would my folks have been doing had they not been colonized by Europeans, had they not been Christian. So I start looking into these different religions. And one of the things that I love is ancestor veneration. Because I'm like, okay, so it's wild to me that the religion that was forced upon us took away our sense of ancestry, took away who it is we knew we used to be. We can no longer speak to them. We can no longer communicate with them. They are gone forever or until we go to where they are. And I just was, and it started to make me really angry because I was like, in reality, we are so connected to who our ancestors are. And if you want to use a spiritual lens, if you want to use a philosophical lens, if you want to use a biological lens, like even on the biological side, we're understanding the reality of epigenetics and how our ancestors changed their genes because of the things that they did, the things that they ate, the thoughts that they thought. You can change your DNA based on the way you think. You can create more density in your hippocampus. You can decrease, the way you release dopamine. You can change things, and that can actually change your DNA, which you then pass along to your children. The DNA you were born with is not necessarily the DNA you pass to your kids. And so the biology understands that. Then the spirituality understands that our ancestors are literally around us, with us, guiding us, giving us dreams, giving us messages, synchronicities, things like this. And so we're starting to see this convergence between Eastern and Western thought. And so since my father has passed, I have definitely been much more comfortable investigating what my lineage is. And then I had the nerve to find out that my ancestors on my dad's side are Gullah Geechee.
Oh, I'm so excited because we had a guest on the show a couple of weeks ago, Joelle Maldonado.
The grave woman.
And her people are Gullah Geechee. And so she went into she gave us a lot of just history on of the ancestry and just the generational power. And I'm drunk, so I can't think of the other word that I wanted to say. But
I love it. I'm gonna listen to that episode because there is so much power that we can gain from properly honoring our ancestors, right? And because everything in magical systems, because I am Gullah Geechee, I just found out I am not an expert, right? I didn't even know this was my ancestry was covered by Adventism for generations, so I didn't know anything. But most things in magical practices have to do with how things are metaphorical. So everything you do serves a greater and a larger purpose to help you psychologically, spiritually, and physically. And so once you start to get in the habit of creating these metaphors in your life, you'll start to see things change. And so that's as deep as I'm gonna go until I want to listen to that episode. Because I know she was spilling some tea.
Do
I wish I
it.
had more alcohol
She
in there.
was.
She was.
She was. Yeah.
Listen, if you wanted to make another one, we could take a break.
Girl, because I am like, listen, I'm here for the woo woo. I was actually reading a book called Why Woo Woo Works. And
so okay, that is on my to-do. That's on my not to-do Goodreads
To read?
list. Yes, it's on
read.
my.
Oh, it is.
It is.
Read it.
It is.
Read it. Read it.
I'm reading.
It
I'm
is
trying
amazing.
to alternate. I alternate reading this year. So this year I'm trying to hit 100 books. That was my 2024. One of my 2024 goals was to read 100 books in a year. And do I expect to hit it? No, but I at least want to. The goal is to reduce screen time and to kind of introduce the habit of reading before, like reading for about 30 minutes before I get out of bed in the morning, and then reading for about 30 minutes to an hour before I go to bed at night. But it's on my to-do list this year, or my to read list this year. So that one, and one that I have, it's a book that I own that Hood Feminism is another one that I just have not read yet.
Oh yeah, I haven't read
own
it yet either.
I have it. I just have not read it. But sorry, I cut you off. What were you saying?
No, I'm too, girl. I'm here. I'm in this glass right now. Just embrace me. But no, I want to read Hood Feminism as well, because I've been doing a deep dive into feminism too, and like, because you know that back in the day, the white feminist movement fucked over the black women, the black feminists. We all know this, but when I was reading some of the quotes, Susan B. Anthony said what? I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I consider myself a womanist, but if someone called me a feminist, I wouldn't be like, how dare you,
No.
But it's interesting when you start to dive through the layers. So I definitely want to read Hood Feminism, but Why Woo Woo Works is amazing, because in my practice, in the work that I do blend science and spirit a lot, because you'll get clients that'll be super scientific, and sometimes I want to pull them a little woo woo, and then I'll get patients that are super woo woo, and I want to pull them a little scientific.
Balance,
the holistic equilibrium wheel.
Absolutely. Well, it's funny that you say that, and I saw Alexis laughing when you were talking about how you've always been sensitive to the ancestors coming to visit and things of that nature. When I tell you, so I as well, also I've been sensitive to that type of stuff since I was little, and I very much am like, especially because I'm a funeral director too, so I'm very much like, close that door, shut that veil. I don't want it, like, not in my home. And
not me.
And I've had that same conversation. We've had this conversation on the show, even, where Alexis is and I'll let her tell you, she's very much a hippie. Her mom, who's like one of the best people in the world, is very much like into that kind of energy moving and healing and all of that. And when Matt passed away, there were times where there were things that happened. So Alexis moved in for like the better part of a month. She was just kind of like, I'm just staying here. And yeah. And it was very much kind of like certain things would happen, and she'd be like, girl, that's Matt coming to visit you. And I'm like, nope. Because he knows me, and he knows good and goddamn well that I do not want those visits. Don't move shit in my house.
What?
Don't slam doors. Don't ring my doorbell. No, just don't do it.
It was him, though. It was him.
I don't want it. And
did he have a routine? Did he have like a tight routine that he ever did, or no?
Oh, very much so.
Yeah.
And
I just heard that he wanted his routine back. But go ahead.
But lots of things that would happen, or just things where, like, for example, I have 2 cats, right? And when I tell you, I was never a cat person. I was a dog person, and he wanted cats. So we got these cats, and now I have 2 cats because like, now those are my babies, and like, I have to just care for them until they die. But sometimes they'll do things where, like, they'll stare at the corner, both of them. Oh, one time it freaked me the fuck out because they were both staring in the exact same corner, and they were just meowing, just like in sync, just meow, 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 in sync, like at this corner in the wall.
You sound just like a cat, girl. You're good at that.
He hears it a lot.
That's crazy. I love that.
It was crazy. And so when I tell you, I popped out that sage so quick and started burning it. I was like, not today, this evening.
Oh my God.
But I say all that to say, because I've been so adverse to welcoming it, and I still am to this day. And a lot of that has to do with my upbringing, because a part of me is like, why do we subscribe to a religion of our oppressors? And then the other side of me, which is Creole and very much like, it's also, if you are not trained to communicate in that way, don't do it, because it's dangerous. And I know that it's dangerous. So I very much, especially considering the work that I do, try to kind of keep that boundary up very strongly, especially in my home. And but you're absolutely right. It's difficult to kind of even investigate that curiosity or really dive into it even a little deeper, because it's just like, I mean, would they have burned me at the stake during the Salem witch trials? Absolutely.
Oh, me too. But I'm getting a word for you real quick. Denial is not protection. So I think there is, especially considering your Creole, your blood, your ancestors do things to protect themselves. And you should, because protection is very real. I absolutely agree with you that you shouldn't dive into something if you don't know it, right? If you haven't practiced it, but it's still important to be protected. I protect with a lot of lavender. I work with a lot of salt, and I've just started working with old brick.
Ooh.
So look into your family lineage and see what they do, so you can protect yourself, so that you can feel safe enough, so that then if something is to happen, it's something that's not against your will or against your good, because you've already protected for that.
Yeah. The most that I will say, I do this in every home that I have. The most that I will do is like a straw broom with cinnamon and like cinnamon essential oil, or cinnamon bark specifically, and sage. And I keep it hanging like right behind my door. So anytime someone like comes, and it did happen, and it worked. Someone came over and I was like, oh, your energy. No. And you swept those footsteps right back out the door. When I tell you I never saw them again.
Let me tell you, a broom is a great tool. It's and that's very hoodoo. That's very hoodoo. But I think hoodoo and then Louisiana voodoo share so many traditions.
Yeah.
It's just funny because these are things like like Shannon said, I'm Jewish by like, I don't know, lineage or whatever. But my mother, when I tell you, is like quintessential hippie. Like, I was raised very spiritual, very much in tune with nature, very much like had a Reiki healer. Like, that was my energy heal. Like, ever since I was a kid, I haven't really followed the Judaism customs as much, unless it was like further down her line, like her parents or her like my great grandparents. But my mom is super hippie. So it's funny because, especially with working so closely in death care, and I still have to see her, she's not like a psychic, but she's an energy mover. She can like move stagnant energy and such. And this is something I've been raised with for as long as I can remember. But my mom always told me about protection. And whenever I'm working so closely with grief, or like when I've had these experiences, because I have had experiences where I've seen things, I've felt energy that wasn't mine. I've been around everything. I've been locked in prep rooms in the pitch black dark and I've seen everything. But my mom told me I have to visualize this like white light. That's my protection light. So I've been doing this since I was a kid, when I would have nightmares, and she would come and put lavender essential oil on my pillow. And I've always had candle. And like, this is how I was raised. So it's interesting, like, because I know it technically is woo woo, but for me, like that's my culture. Like, I literally was raised, it's ingrained in me. So like Shannon will tell you, literally my apartment, yes, it's very spooky and I have a lot of black, but like the other half of my apartment is like all spiritual. It's chakra, there's candles, there's sage, there's lavender, it's colorful. It's just this, I always say there's beauty in duality. And that's literally what my entire life has been, is like darkness, but light, but darkness. So it's just interesting to hear your perspective and how you're kind of coming into touch with your ancestors and learning more about your lineage, and how different it was from what you were kind of taught and what you were brought up in, and how that impacts our spirituality today and the women that we've grown into.
Exactly. And I don't let it hold me back anymore. And they all have to accept me for it, because I fight them on it every single day. My family has these extra Christian group chats, and I fight them the whole time. The whole time. I'm like, what makes you believe that your God is my God? Why are you pushing this onto me? I don't want it. I'm very clear. But as you were talking, Alexis, it got me thinking about the deity of Persephone and the balance, the Greek god, the balance of Persephone that, when she is gone, winter comes upon us. But when she comes back from from the underworld, we're in spring. We have flowers. So you are maybe a little bit of that. You're that person that is both. When your presence isn't felt, the rest of us are cold.
But
just don't have Hades, but
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, you know
he's
what,
the
though?
problem.
That's definitely right. But that's an interesting duality in what we do. I think in caring for people who have lost someone, in shepherding folks through a loss as, death workers, and then trying to not necessarily, and I think there's a misconception that we're supposed to make people feel better when they're grieving, and it's not that's not our job. We're not supposed to make you feel better. We're supposed to educate you on what happens next and help you get through it, and and build that rapport for you to trust us, because you're not yourself. You're in the fog, and you need a shepherd essentially through this really, really dark time. And we know what to do, and we're here to get you through at least the logistical side of it. And I think about that a lot. I did some reading up on Persephone, recently. The book that I'm currently reading, I'm reading Circe. I'm reading the story of
That's such a good book.
Right. Well, my cat's named Circe.
That.
So
I know.
I'm reading that now for the first time. But I think about Persephone and how she was this goddess of like life, and how she, like I said, the goddess of spring. But then there's this side of her that partners with Hades, who's, the god of death, and that walking that balance and kind of showing or shedding light on loss and showing the beauty and grief, in a sense, is that line that we try to walk. And specifically speaking to you, Alexis, and between Alexis and I, and what we're working on, and without talking about what we're working on, but which we'll share offline, Allie, but trying to find a way to walk that line and to reflect the beauty in death that is the folks that you've left behind, that is the legacy, and celebrating that. And that loss is not to make you, not to make you feel better. It's not to make you put on a face and smile and comfort people who are supposed to be comforting you, but it's to honor that space between this life and the next, and the legacy left behind.
Because truly, when you said, our job is not to make people feel better, because in essence, can any of us actually make someone feel better?
No. And it's pompous.
Right? We can't.
It's pompous to think that and self-absorbed to think that you can. And
right.
I have this saying. So I have this saying that transparency trumps compassion. And that's something that I tell every new funeral director that I train. Transparency trumps compassion. And even just saying, I'm sorry for your loss, it doesn't feel sincere, because you didn't know this person. It's something that you say to every single family. So if it's something that you have to say, why not let it be something that is heartfelt and sincere? So anyone that I train, I tell them to remove "I'm sorry" from your loss from your vocabulary, and replace it with "Thank you for trusting me."
Yeah, because that's what you really are saying. You're not saying "I'm sorry for your loss" because you don't, like you said, I don't know you. But I think when it comes to sadness, when it comes to grief, when it comes to loss, humans, and I think I can speak pretty specifically to capitalism culture. We want Persephone to always be here. We want to chain her in the corner, much like Hades tried to do, right? Keep her with us, to keep life with us, keep things alive, keep things perfect forever. We feel like we can, but then it's never enough, right? This idea of hedonic adaptation, that the minute you have something good, you want something better, you want something better, you want something better. And loss comes in to equalize that. Loss is an equalizer. None of us get to live forever, as far as I know. I mean, I don't know. There might be some motherfucker out there that's figured it out. But none of us get to live forever. And loss is an inherent part of life. And learning to sit with loss, right? This is the Buddhism kicking in. Learning to sit with loss, not saying that it's a good thing necessarily, not saying that it's a bad thing, but it is a thing that exists and that is absolutely unavoidable. Nobody will live a life for long without loss. And if you lived an entire life without loss, it probably means you lost your own life pretty early.
Ooh.
Right? If you live a long life, you're going to lose things. You're going to lose people. You're going to lose opportunities. Things will be lost. And so we get to savor how much something meant to us by understanding the depth of our loss. And when I think about how much I miss my dad, it actually, sometimes I'm like, as I'm sad, I'm also so grateful and so happy that I'm not glad he's gone. There are some people who are so angry and the relationship that they have with their parent was so toxic and so abusive that they're like glad they're not here. I don't have any of those feelings. I am miserable that my dad passed. And I don't think I'm ever going to I don't think my feelings about it are going to change, but my perspective of my feelings changes. I honor my feeling of loss when it comes. I'm like, it's a reminder of how hard I loved him.
Yep.
You know, and so it's not even, so people will say, yeah, oh, I don't want to feel like this. I want you to fix me, make me feel better. No, this is an artifact of love, because the opposite of love isn't hate. The opposite of love is loss.
Oh. Yes.
Just what it
So
is.
there's-
So
It's the
beautifully
result.
said.
There's so Dr. Julie Shaw is someone I follow on Instagram. She's I believe I don't know if she's a psychologist or a psychiatrist, I forget, but she shares openly how she lost her sister, I think in 2017, 2018, something like that. And it kind of shifted her whole practice and her perspective. And so her Instagram is hello, I'm grieving. That's I follow her there. And oh yeah, she's great. I don't know her personally, but she's great.
You're like, she's my
She
bestie.
has this- right. We go together, but she doesn't know we go together yet. I mean, I feel like in death care and grief work, you're only like 2 degrees separated. She lives in LA and she's Black. We'll find her. We'll find each other eventually. But she has this saying that, and it's on a mug, and I actually have the mug. It says, "Grief is love persevering." And I thought that was so incredibly beautiful. But what's interesting is it's one of those statements that you can't digest right when you're in the midst of the throes of that traumatic loss. But several months or years down the line, it's like, this hurts so badly because I love this person so much.
Yeah.
And it's a perfect reminder, of what that person brought to your life, and that, you know, it doesn't, your feelings don't exist in a vacuum. There's no right way to feel. It's not linear. And you can kind of, it's a great, at least for me, it's a great reminder of like, yes, this person meant a lot to me. This person helped me grow. They helped me really understand things about myself and the rest of the world and see things differently, and losing them even more so. But I just thought that phrase was so incredibly beautiful. And I had never, in all of my years in the industry and my big old age, I had never heard that before. And it just really hit home for me. And I thought it was so profound and so beautiful. And that's what that sounds like when I hear you talk about your dad. And I hear you talk about, you know, how much you loved him and how you don't have these feelings of resentment or regret. It's just the pain of missing a big piece. And it's different too, because losing a parent, I feel, is different because you've never lived life without this person. So you've never, like, the world without this person in it just did not exist to you. Whereas if you lose a partner, sure, there was a time before you were with said person, or there was a time that, you know, if you maybe lost like a younger sibling or something like that, or even your grandparents are older. But for some reason, a parent, someone who had an integral part in shaping the person that you are, you've never experienced a day without them. And now that you have to, it's a completely different type of loss.
Exactly. And that's one of the reasons I also like ancestor veneration so much, because I've lost people before I kind of stumbled across my knowledge of ancestor work. And those losses they felt more final. They felt more like cold, right? It just, like, as I think about it, I get a chill down my right shoulder. Like, it feels like an ice cube, right? It's like on my chest. But when I think about the loss of my dad, it's more connected, because I've been I'll joke with people and I'll be like, yeah, our relationship has actually improved since he died, because his mouth doesn't get in the way anymore. Right? Because he can't talk too much shit anymore. You know, it's like, it's me and him and my perspective of what he's saying. But it allows me to get to know him in a different way, and like I was talking about, like the idea of like metaphor as a component of like magic, but like, when you do ancestor veneration, like you spend time with them. Right. So you're, and the term ancestor veneration might turn some people off, but that's going to the gravestone. That's leaving flowers. That's sending a balloon into the air. It's different for everyone, but it's the same thing. Right. Because some people will be like, oh, I don't do that demon stuff. I'm not going, no, you fucking do it. You do it too. You do it too. We all do it because it's what humans do to connect with the other side. Right. Like the fact that we do anything with our dead, putting them in a box, putting them in a wall, putting them in the ground, putting them in an urn is all ancestor veneration. All of it.
Mm-hmm.
People be so high and mighty. That's demonic, bitch. What?
Bitch, you sound like the demon.
Let people mourn the way they're going to mourn. Stop trying to control everything people do. It's so wild to me. But yeah, and you see it across so many different generations in so many different ways. Everyone has a mechanism for dealing with the loss of a person in their space. And so my adjustment, the adjustment that I made recently, honestly, it just feels so different, and it feels so affirming and so right that I am glad that I have found something that is right for me. Would I ask anybody else to do it? No. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But for me, it's been amazing.
I love that. And I think that's important. And I think a lot of the times people think that grieving or loss is like a one size fits all, and what works for someone will work for someone else, but it's not. And it's finding the things that work for you instead of trying to listen to what everybody else is doing and things, because a lot of the time, most of the time, actually, it's not going to be a one size fits all. So I'm glad that you were able to find that and find some solace in that, because it's so important when navigating a loss.
Thank you. And you make me think of another thought too, that we aren't even the same person every day. And as time goes on, we change. And so we might mourn in this particular way now, but like, I don't have children. So if I have a child without my dad here, mourning will look a little different, as I'm mourning my dad not knowing a future child, or, if I have like a big achievement, he's not there for, and so even at different phases in our lives, mourning changes, and we may have to adjust the way that we experience it or the way that we deal with it.
Oh yeah, 1,000%.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's applicable to just loss in general too, because I think about how, you re-grieve in a sense all over again, or it's reignited when you experience something without that person. Because even like how you mentioned your dad not being here, if you decide to, have a kid, and then like this, like you exist in this world and you have never known this person who was so important to me. But even on like a minuscule scale, like I think about how like the Game of Thrones series, right? I read all of the books. And the reason why I read all of the books is because Matt read all of the books. And I would watch him sitting on the couch and just cracking up and like reading like excerpts to me. And I'm like, okay, I have to read this series. And so he died in 2017 and the show ended in 2019 at 2018 or something like that. And so it was a terrible ending, but it's so funny as I'm watching this, I'm like, you are not here to see how this shit show of a series ended, or like you'll never watch the last book come out, or like when he died, the Avengers movie had just come out. What's the one before Endgame? I forget, but
I'm not gonna know.
Yeah,
I watched it, but I don't remember the name.
It was like the big deal one before Endgame, before like the big deal one. Like he died in between those two movies coming out. And when I went to go see Endgame, I'm like, he's never gonna know. Which, does he give a fuck? Probably not. But it was interesting how it reignited my grief in a way where it was like things that I didn't even think about. Where it's just like, wow, like we watched this entire series together, or we read all of these books, and you'll never read the last one. So it's very interesting.
Absolutely. So many transitions. And okay, let me try to think of the quote that our grief doesn't get smaller, but our life grows around it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Mm-hmm. And that's just because it doesn't go away per se, because people will be like, make it go away. And I'm like, ugh. I don't know if that's how it works.
It's not how it works.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've talked about that before, how grief is like a hole and it never shrinks, but like, as the years go on, you may revisit the hole for anniversaries, birthdays, big occasions, events. Um, but your life gets bigger. But yeah, it doesn't necessarily get smaller for sure.
So Dr. Ally, using just one word, what do you hope that people take away from all of your work and the amazing content that you create? One word.
And the word that made you laugh, that's the word we want.
No, I can't even think of one word. I don't even communicate in one word. I have thought 75 words since you asked that question.
That facial expression was perfection, and we are still using that in a clip.
That'll be like the freeze frame.
I think balance. Balance.
I love that.
I hated that exercise. It was important.
You're going to hate this next one even more. Don't you worry.
Oh, good.
Give it to her.
I am going to ask you my absolute favorite question. And that is, how do you want to be remembered?
Now, there's a difference between how I want to be remembered and how I shall be remembered.
You know what? Tell us both.
I mean, honestly, I want to be remembered as somebody who left a mark on others, a positive mark, through intellectual, fun conversation. And I think I will be remembered as a fun bitch that is going to say the most interesting things you've ever heard and things that are also so fundamentally like fight and argument inducing, but at the end of the day, force you to think about things in a different way. So I think bitch will be used a lot at my funeral. And just know I will be applauding and saying yes. As you create a museum of my dildos and publish my journals.
Gang. Well, I forget who
you and Shannon sound the same.
I don't know who said it.
I've known
but
her for a million years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a quote that's like, bitches get shit done. And it's just like, it is what it is.
And what's the other one? Well-behaved women rarely make history.
Rarely.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Well, Dr. Ally, this has been so much fun.
So fun.
Thank you so much for doing this with us. Thank you for joining us. You're my girl. I love you to death. And thank you for taking time out to chat with us. So where can the people find you?
You can find me at AllycinHicks.com. And mind you, my name is spelled insane. ALLYCIN Hicks, just HICKS.com. And then, I mean, come over to my TikTok. I'm a little bit lit over there. And that is Dr. Ally, DRALLY. No, I'm lit.
Listen, we said we were going to wrap this up, but let's talk about that for a hot split second. It's okay. I'm sorry, Milan. You're going to have to cut and splice and move some pieces around. But I completely forgot. We didn't talk about Kindred Collective, and I want to. Yeah, let's do that because we're going to have Shara on the show too.
We're pushing that. We're going to do another one in March. I mean, probably in the spring is when we're going to do another one. Anyways, good. Okay, what do you want to know about it?
But yeah, I want to talk about that for a second. Let's do TikTok first. Let's have a moment for Ally is not only a badass PhD, but, media consultant, all that shit. Had a whole TV show, her and him, which, by the way, you guys were so cute, you and your mom. TV show with her mother. And, but she does not fuck around with y'all on the ticks or the talks.
I don't know why. I do this to people on TikTok. I love it. I talk shit, a lot of shit. And I try to educate between, but nobody gives a fuck about my educational content. They do not care. They do not go to it. They want to hear when I read Black Men, the Riot Act. They want to hear when I talk about racism. They want to hear when I talk about like all the nonsense. So, I try to slide some educational content into it. So kind of the direction that I go is, because back in the day, I had like TMZ reached out to me to like be on their show and talk about something, right? And I said like, no, I don't think it's a good look for a person in the mental health space to be like gossiping, right?
Mhm.
So, and I've built that into what I think is very important to me, right? A value that's very important to me is holding people's secrets and not trying to actively judge people. So what I do, because you still have to address the things that are happening in the world, is I will say, well, when this thing was happening, this person, it reminded me of this thing. And now I'm going to talk about this thing. And that's kind of a model that has worked well for me. So it's like educational. So now I can talk about the Dunning-Kruger effect, which is the fact that people who know the least believe they know the most. And then the opposite is we have the imposter syndrome, where people who actually know the most are smart enough to realize that they don't know shit. So they feel like imposters all the time. And I get to talk about kind of complicated things like that while talking about pop culture. So I definitely come for people's throats and necks. And I'm getting less nice on TikTok too. I'm getting less nice.
My
Thanks for
favorite,
following you.
my
Oh,
favorite,
sure. Come on over.
most recently, and what made me think of TikTok is because while we were waiting for you to come on, I was scrolling as I do, and homegirl who was talking about, I don't like talking about race. And it's like, because you have the luxury to be able not to. No one likes talk. We don't like talking about race. We have to.
We have to. Don't you think I would love, I actually have weeks that I call my white girl weeks, where I just pretend that race isn't a thing. And I just walk around with the fucking freedom of a blonde woman in fucking Georgia. Like I live my fucking life every once in a while, because the burden of being an African American woman right now and having to think about all the fucking shit we have to think about. You think we enjoy this? Do you think that
No.
I wake up and say, I want to blame a white person for something that happens today? No, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do it.
No.
It's the last thing I want to do. I want to go out and I want to buy a new fucking purse. I want to take a walk on the beach, and I don't want to have someone complain about my existence. That's all I want. And so yeah, I had to let her know, like, reverse racism, ma'am. So talking about the racist structure that neither of us built, mind you, but was built to help people who look like you. And honestly, not even to really help people like you. It was built to elevate the white woman to a position where she's trapped in a fucking gilded cage so that she can pump out white babies so that the white male can continue his level of control. So me just talking about that is me being racist? Motherfucker, I don't even know what to say to you anymore. I don't even know what to say. Like, I don't even know what to say. I'm trying to liberate your dumb ass too. You sitting up here can't even get rid of, dying from not being able to get rid of a fetus that died inside of your body, and you're over here like, but don't talk about race. Ugh.
I want to put that on a t-shirt. I'm trying to liberate your dumbass too. I want to put that on a t-shirt. I'm trying to liberate your dumbass too.
Jesus Christ, I want all of us to do better. Fuck. So you see, and this is what I'm saying behind the TikToks as I'm like cropping and like editing it out. Like, no, bitch, don't say that. Allycin, you can't say that. It's too mean.
I live, because the thing is, these are all things that definitely need to be said. And I think so many people, when presented with a contradictory opinion and something that could be damaging to, or just even like you said, you say something about race and people say, well, why do you have to talk about race? And not only are you getting them together, because that was very much a read, but it was so succinct and it was still classy. And I think that's important, because I think people believe that when we are Black women in professional spaces, that we should just all of a sudden, all of our culture melts away, or all of our, not necessarily allegiance, but our being true to our own identity is masked. And I know Alexis and I have talked about this many times, about how just even in general, professionalism, but be professional. Professionalism is racist because it's based on a systematic set of cultural practices that do not belong to us. So you want us to conform to what you think is normal to make you more comfortable. And that's it. And that's why that's racist, because it's not, the thing is, and also professionalism is synonymous with passive aggression, but that's another story for another day. But I think about how Black women engage in discourse is completely different than how white women engage in discourse, or how Latino women engage in discourse, or how Asian women engage in discourse, or Indigenous people. It's completely different. So to think that we're all supposed to come together in this one little, however many square foot office and all act the same way it's not feasible. It's just not, and it's not healthy. And someone's going to have to pretend to be something they're not to make other people feel comfortable. And usually it's white people.
That's it.
But,
and as opposed to understanding people's skills and values and how diversity helps every system. I was reading a lot of articles and a lot of research on diversity in business and how having genetic or ethnic diverse companies, having gender diverse companies helps the productivity. So those companies actually make more money, because you're thinking even in the funeral services, right? So you have an Asian couple come in from a particular culture, because it's also established not every person who's considered Asian, that is a wildly vast group of people, right? That is a very large swath of people. So if you have someone who works on your staff who is from a similar cultural group as the person who's coming in, they can connect with them in a way that the rest of y'all can't. And that is fucking beautiful.
It is.
Why would you? It's like, why would you want everyone to be the same? So now people from diverse places are coming in and they just don't get their needs met. It's ridiculous. It's like diversity is important. We need it. We need to lean into it, people's skills and embrace them for it instead of shame them out of them.
Absolutely.
These people stress me out. They stress me out. I'm blessed to be, I've known Shannon for a long time, and I'm surrounded by a lot of very smart people. And I forget that there's a lot of people on this planet that just don't care to learn things. And so they have their one tiny view, and then now they want to force everybody into that tiny view. And you're like, that don't make no sense. But anyways, I get frustrated on social media sometimes. And every once in a while, I just want to quit. I just want to go away. I just want to disappear.
You're doing the Lord's work, You are making her proud.
Oh,
I always refer to I always refer to God as a woman, because what?
I love that.
I absolutely do, because I look at it as like, I had this conversation with one of my aunts because she heard me say she, and she's like, it's he. And I'm like, is it though? If God is omnipresent, hear me out. If God is omnipresent, why do you think they would be constricted by something as simple as the human idea of gender identity? So I feel like if I want to refer to God as he, she, they, it, or whatever purple dragon in the corner, that's fine, because omnipresent, super powerful being, probably no biggie.
I like that.
Let's be real. Did a man come up with all this? Probably not. Not a cishet one, maybe a gay one.
I mean,
not a cishet one.
and then when it comes down to it, this is why I get frustrated with certain aspects of Christianity. The Bible was not written in English.
No.
It was not written in German. It was written in Aramaic. It was written in Hebrew. So if you are going to read it, you need to be able to do a direct translation from one of those languages to the language you speak now. So there's a version called the Tanakh, which allows you to read it from the direct translation. But when you read the name of the Holy Spirit, for example, the name of the Holy Spirit is Ruach HaKodesh. And lots of scholars refer to this name as a feminine name. There's very few scholars. It's literally a woman's name, and they changed it. It's like Rebecca was the name of the Holy Spirit, and now they're just calling them Holy Spirit instead of Rebecca when it was. And I mean, it's a nurturer. It gives you knowledge. It gives you information. Who does that in your household? I'm just saying.
Who's expected to?
Who's expected to, because let's be real, not everybody's nurturing just because you have a vagina. But I like yours better. I like yours a lot. Yep. I like that. Don't trap God.
No, absolutely not. So speaking of healing and kind of, becoming better versions of ourselves, I want to talk a little bit about the Kindred Collective. I know I was very fortunate to meet your counterpart super randomly and absolutely fell in love with her. She's also agreed to come on the show. We'll do an episode about financial health in death care. And Oh yeah. When I tell you I ran into, and it's pronounced Shara, right?
Shara.
Shara. So I ran into Shara randomly, Alexis, as you know, I'm sharing this with the people at a funeral. First, Allie was also there, for someone that I'm very close to who was a mentor to me. And I'm not going to share the name because I don't think they would like that. So I'm not going to. But we were at a funeral for this person, and my mom was in line to get food and grabbed a seat, and Shara happened to ask my mom to save a seat for her. So like my mom was holding her purse. And when I came in, and she's like, "Oh, I'm holding this purse for this young lady who's going to join us." And I looked over and I was like, "Who?" And she's like, "Her." And I was like, "Oh, the pretty black girl with the braids. Okay, cool." And she came and sat down. We got to talking, and it was just like, "Oh yeah, well, my friend Allycin." And I'm like, "I know Allie." And I realize I'm rambling, but you folks work together on the Kindred Collective. Can you share a little bit about that and what you have coming up?
Absolutely. I absolutely love Shara. I'm obsessed with her. We've been friends since high school, and we kind of like met again, like kind of like rekindled our friendship because it gets quiet, you move around, all of this stuff. And I just fell in love with her all over again. She has like the most calm spirit. I am just absolutely obsessed with it. And so when we're sitting, we're like, I think we like went out, we had a few conversations, and we were like, we need to do something to blend our skills because I'm more, the mind, and she is definitely the mind as well, but like spirit. She does breath work. I'm gonna let her talk about that with y'all. And so we were like, we should definitely unite some of the things that we do to create something that allows women to really rejuvenate themselves, to connect with others at the same time. Because lots of people have been wanting to go on retreats lately because we're tired of sitting at home all day. We're tired of having to be on calls, on Zooms, on this and on that. And we just want to be able to sit with people and entirely focus our time on healing. And so we actually ended up bringing in a third person, one of my dear friends. She is a celebrity personal trainer. And she is also probably one of the most spiritually grounded people that I know. Her name is Marcella. And so the three of us were going to do this like mind, body, spirit retreat. And so we have one coming up, and we have another one coming up in, I think we're going to do it in May. I don't want to, you ask Shara, she's the organized one. I'm the creative one. But, and it's in Ojai, beautiful space here in Southern California. And, we made a big deal about having lots of content, enough content in it so you can, get the things that you need, but keeping it flexible so people can also not do things. Because when we go to these retreats and we do this stuff, a lot of times we will also overschedule ourselves at the place we're supposed to be relaxing at. You're like, okay, I'm going to go to the 5 a.m. call, the 5 a.m. meditation out by the fire pit. Then I'm going to go on the hike at 6 a.m. Then I'm going to have breakfast at 7:30. Then and so we were like, we want to make sure that people are getting a lot, but that there's no shame if they're like, yeah, I'm not doing 5 a.m. Like I'm going to be over here. So it's again, the balance, the push and the pull, the having access while also at the same time being able to relax. So I'm very excited for it. Can't wait.
I know.
Sounds amazing.
I was really sad to see that the dates didn't line up, and I'm like, oh, I can't do this date. But I know if hopefully this will become
May.
like a regular
you can do
thing.
The May one. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if this is going to be a regular thing, because even I sent the link to Alexis, and I was like, this is so your vibe. Like this, this is very much your vibe. So, I am very excited for you and just everything you're working on. And I just, again, thank you so much for joining us today. Having a little drink with us, getting a little tipsy. I am definitely tipsy. I think I've passed tipsy.
You think?
Yeah, I'm about to make another one. Mine was too small. I'm about to make another one.
Yes!
I should have put more in it. I didn't put enough.
But as always, I know we kind of did this part already, but if you want to give your social media and your information for folks.
Yeah, you can find me on AllycinHicks.com, and that's spelled ALLYCIN, Allycin, HICKS Hicks.com. You can also find me on TikTok at Dr.Ally, I think it is, but it's ALLY. And yeah, it's me. You'll see my face.
And of course, you can keep up with me on Instagram and X at I Do Death, on TikTok at I.do.death. I'm going to shame that person who stole my name for TikTok every chance I get. Every chance I get. Lex.
And then me, you can find me on everything at Death with Lex.
You can follow the show at Get Stiff Podcast and keep up with all of us. And of course, as always, this has been another episode of Get Stiff, Stiff Talk,
Stiff Drinks.
And we out. Get Stiff is produced by Milan Reed. Do you love us and want to help others find the show? If you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe. For all audio platforms, please rate and review the show. It helps others find us, and we'd love to know what you think. Do you have a topic you want to hear us get into? A drink recipe you'd like to recommend? Do you have a story to share? We want to hear from you. Get in touch at getstiffpodcast@gmail.com or reach out on Instagram at getstiffpodcast.